So, I'm really happy you're all enjoying each other's company so much. I think you probably got to go have a beer after this or something, right? But I think we should get started again. And there were only 2 people who responded to the prompt, so I'll read that right now. Here's what I love about Sharpsburg. I can walk down the street and get a slice. The other one says, I remember walking through a long, dark tunnel, getting my feet wet to go fishing at the dam. So we're going to start our second half. There will be a sheet that goes through the audience if you want to be on an email list, especially if you have a neighborhood to suggest for future, events like this. I would sure like to know it. So I'll just circulate this. And then I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Opening our second half is Robert Gallo. Robert Gallo was born, and raised in the borough of Sharpsburg and graduated from Sharpsburg High School. He graduated from the University of Dayton with a Bachelor of Arts and Science degree. Bob was elected to Sharpsburg Borough Council and served as councilman for 20 years until he was elected judge, Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. He served as a judge for 26 years, and upon retirement, he reestablished a legal practice in the Grant Building, where he originally began his legal career. He's married to Donna Murtha and has 3 sons, and I feel privileged to have Bob here today to tell one of the stories of his life. He admits he's got a million of them. So welcome, Bob Gallo.
The only reason why I have a million is because I'm old. I have something I have here. I think I'll go off script a little bit, but just let me say this. I have an overview. I've lived here all my life, and it's a long life, very fortunate. And I'm going to talk about the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, how it was in those days when I was living here. I just moved here 10 years ago, but I lived in Sharpsburg 75 years. So I did the full circle. Now I don't know anybody. Before I knew everybody. Now I don't know anybody. That's just a little joke there. But I lived, born on 14th Street, 108 14th Street, and I was born in 1937, and I was delivered in my home. No one went to the hospital in those days. And I lived, like I said, on 14th Street, and that was the dividing line where you went to school. If you lived on 14th Street, upper, you went to the 18th Street School. If it was below, you went to Linden Avenue. So I had to go to the 18th Street School, which was a little. I'll get into this. A little hard for me because at this time, you're talking in the 40s. My mother was an immigrant, and most kids that I loafed with were children of immigrants. My mother couldn't talk English or Italian, or she talked in Italian. When they talked to me in broken English. I didn't know what they were talking. Half Italian, half English. I'll just tell you a quick story. I gave a talk one time. I got to watch myself because I talk too much. I'll tell you, I tell you, I had to give a speech one time, and I was running statewide, and I went out to somewhere out in the eastern part of the state. It was some ISDA or Sons of Italy place, and I go there. The guy said, "You go, you can maybe get some votes." So I went out there, and the guy says, "Well, you're the main speaker." I said, "I'm the main speaker. I don't have a speech to tell these people." So I told them about Sharpsburg, but I don't want to get into that. It's too long a story. But the thing is this. I told them one thing, and they really were laughing. I says, I was 22 years old before I knew what a tea towel was. I called it a muppin. And I said, I was 22 years before I knew what a calendar was. I called it the School of Past. That's where the past. So that's where we are. Let me just say this: when I was being raised here, we're all ethnics. First generation. Most of us are first generation ethnics. There was 4 churches here on 4 corners: Italian, Irish, German, in Polish. That was it. And there was, I think, maybe about 10 or 12 black families. But I want to emphasize this. You can't believe how we all got along. I don't think that when I think back, I don't think you could ever experience a community like Sharpsburg. Everybody knew everybody, and everybody felt like they were related. And they were. They were right. Some of the Italians came from the same city, the same town in Italy, and here everybody knew everybody, and that's the way it was. But let me see what I'm going to touch on. Like I say, we were all close. Now, Sharpsburg, people worked in Sharpsburg. They worked at the plants right around here, and the plants were Spangs, where I worked for 6 years at Spangs. People worked at Union Steel, which is across the Fleming Street Bridge. I don't know if it's there anymore. On the right-hand side, people worked. On the left-hand side was Hubbard's. And that's where most of the people worked. And, listen to this, Fort Pitt Brewery. People don't realize, what's that, Fort Pitt, that's it? When I was a kid, it was the 6th largest brewery in the country. Now think of this. In the country. You know what happened? They went on strike. I think maybe for 3 months, 4 months, and it was the end. And they never recovered. It's a Fort Pitt. It's right up here where that microbrewery is, up near up there. Now let me see what I'm going to talk about. I'll just tell you what Sharpsburg was like. Now, Sharpsburg was a bustling community, people all over the streets. We had, you go down Main Street here, you had Penmac, we had a giant eagle when I was a kid. How's that? I go back a long time. And Isleys, you know Isleys, chipped ham? Penmac. You can't believe there were butcher shops right next to each other. And the other thing, this was the great thing about Sharpsburg, was that everybody was very close. However, the bad thing about it, no one left the town. That isn't good. No one left the town. I worked over at Spank Chalfont with people who were in the Second World War and never left the town. They'd go to Etna, come back. The reason why I never went to no one would go to Pittsburgh, because we had a clothing store. We had Trazy's clothing store. The women here, we had Pravoski's. Pravoski was in Sharpsburg, and Etna. People never left. That isn't that part of it isn't good. Now, I'm going to talk about the corners, but how we loafed. We loafed on a corner. But I'm going to say, to be on a corner, you had to be tough. You had to be tough to be on a corner, because people come down, even though you were close, they put you down. I don't know if you understand this. Now, I'm talking about 1950, 51. It was tough. If you were an Italian, and I'm sure if Polish, everybody experiences this, no matter what nationality you were discriminated against. And I remember when I was a kid, I was on a corner. I said, well, geez, I think I want to get ahead. I want to get, there's something about better life. They said, where are you going? Somebody would say, where are you going? You're going to do work. You're going to do the Italian typewriter. Do you know what the Italian typewriter is? Anybody know what the Italian typewriter is? Whoa, you're back. What is it? No, it's a pick and shovel. Where are you going? Pick and shovel. This is what you had to tolerate on a corner when you hung out on a corner. Now I hung out. My wife can't believe this. I hung out on a corner since I was about 12 years old till I was about 22. Unbelievable. Now, I worked during these times, but you hung out on a corner. I was a caddy at 14. When I was a caddy at 14, I met new guys. I knew everybody, but you loaf with them. I used to loaf with Guy Suda. right here, Guy Suda. Then, when I got, and then the other place where we loafed, right at the building next to the Linden School, was the YMCA, which was closed for a long time. I can't remember how long it was closed. There was steps here. We used to come down and sit on those steps. Then, as I got older, and driving a car and doing things of that nature, we loafed. We, everybody, loafed from Julie's restaurant, which is on a corner here, always down the 10th Street. It used to be a corner here. People come down and talk. What do you talk about? I don't know what you talked about. And the people, my wife asked, well, what did you do there every night? I don't know. There wasn't any TV. Well, people were close. People would, after dinner, they would get their chair in the summertime, sit outside, and once they sat there, another neighbor would grab a chair, and everybody would get together, and everybody was engaged. So that's the way the community is, and you can't believe how close people were in this community. If you say anything, it can't be duplicated anywhere, how close we were. Now the thing is, what do we do? What exposure does somebody like me have? I worked over Spanx Chalfont, come home, had a car, thought I was a big shot. The only exposure I had, on Friday nights, we would go to Lenny Lipman's Copa. I don't know, you'd be too young to remember Lenny Lipman. He brought in all the big shows. Now Tommy Simberry's back there. I went there with his dad. Now, I'm so old, I'm with dads and grandfathers. But that was our exposure. That was our exposure to the outside world. It was unbelievable when I think about it, how backward we were in one way doing that. But I have to emphasize, everybody got along. Just let me say this. Now, Sharpsburg was a booming town. Can't believe it. I can mention the stores down here on Main Street. Yeah, like Giant Eagle, Isley's, butcher shops, clothing stores. You didn't have to leave the town. And people didn't leave the town. They thought you were crazy if you left the town. And that was good in one way, it's bad in the other way, because you have to be exposed. You have to see other types of people. So I started my loafing outside at the playground. I had to go up to the playground on 15th Street. I had to be about 11 or 12 years old. I would go up there. Then the thing is this, you're 11 or 12 years old, you're talking to people 5, 6, 7, 8 years older than you. At a young age, I was really exposed. Then from there, I told you, I went to the corner at the gym, at the YMCA. Then as I grew older, I came to the corner down here. And one thing we should talk about in Sharpsburg, not today, is Sharpsburg politics. Sharpsburg politics was brutal. Let me tell you, I don't know about it now, but when brutal, it was harder for me, listen to this, harder for me to win a council seat in Sharpsburg than it was to win a countywide office. That's how difficult politics was. In the days that I ran, and before me, to get ahead, see, it was very difficult to get ahead when you're a minority. I'm talking about this, and you didn't have an education. There's no way of getting ahead. You had to get ahead through politics, get a job. Today, in the county, they can fill jobs today that 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you had to have the Democratic chairman go down and see the commissioner to get a job. That's how the world has changed. So politics was a way of life in Sharpsburg to get ahead. And well, I don't know, I don't want to bore anybody, but I'm going to tell you one last story. I can go on forever, but I'll just tell you this last story. And it's a short story, but I think about it all the time. Now, you know, we have the rivers here. We were never allowed to near the rivers. No one's allowed near the river. My mother was really tough on that. And if you would go to the river, somebody would report you. Some friend of your mother's or family, they would report you. However, like I told you, I went to the 18th Street School. And I think you'd go there and you're out of 11:30 and back at 1 o'clock. I can't remember. Now, I went with the guys. I was a follower, I have to say that. Would go down to the tunnel, the 9th Street tunnel, go down there and walk over to the dam. Now, I'm only in the 8th grade because I was trying to figure this out. And I wasn't a swimmer. And luckily I wasn't a swimmer because my mother didn't allow me to go to the YMCA. It was open. And all these kids were good swimmers. I have to say this. They were excellent swimmers. Now, they used to go down to the dam there. Now, when you go across the Highland Park Bridge, you can look down and you see that dam. One other thing I forgot. In the summertime, we had no sports, nothing to do. We used to walk across that Highland Park Bridge, all the way across from here, cross that road, up a path, and end up in the swimming pool. Yeah, that's where we are, what we're doing. Now, let me get back to the dam. So we went down to the dam. I was a kid, 8th grade. I had to be in 8th grade. And these other guys, they're all good swimmers. So they would get down by that dam. Now, when you go across the bridge, look down at the dam on the right-hand side. The dam, the piers that hold the dam in place come down like this and protrude out. Now, these guys would go down there and then take their pants off in the nude, and they would jump off the wall and see how close they could get to the whirlpool. Now, I'm lucky I wasn't a swimmer. I was just there. Because I probably wouldn't be here to tell this story. But the thing is this. I remember my friend. I won't mention his name, and maybe somebody might know him. He may be dead now. I am in contact with him. Lenny Balsito. Balsito was a big name in Sharpsburg. His grandfather was chief of police. Lenny was crazy. Not crazy, but he didn't do anything. And I still remember, there's a sign down. I don't know if the sign is still there. There's a sign right on the wall. It says, do not trespass. And he bet somebody that he could get on top of that sign and jump and make it over the wall. And he bet somebody. And he won. He did it. The guy didn't pay him, though. But the thing is this. They would get close to that whirlpool, the rapids there, and see who could get close. I don't know of anybody, I can't remember now, anybody jumping off that wall, it killed themselves. No. However, there were people drowning every year on that river. I mean, it was constantly, people would be in a rowboat, and they would go too close, and the whirlpool would suck them up and kill them. I mean, this is a tragic story. Let me see. I'm going to end this. I don't want to talk all night. I could go all night with these stories, but I don't want to. But I don't want to bore you. So thank you for being here and listening to some of these crazy stories that I have. Okay.
Was it not the best damn story of the night? The best damn story. Thank you. So we have a couple teams coming up next. First, Kayla Portis and Chaz Smith with Talkin' Stuff, the Bumpy edition. Kayla Portis is a fourth-generation Sharpsburg resident and the first Black Sharpsburg Council member. Kayla's a mom and a healthcare worker who also finds time to serve as a member of the Sharpsburg Historical Commission and as an Allegheny River Trail Park volunteer. Kayla is compassionate about human rights and we're honored to have her here today. She'll be talking stuff with her Uncle Chaz. And Chaz Smith is a lifelong Sharpsburg resident and the first African American to own a storefront in Sharpsburg, Chaz's Antiques and Antiques, right here on Canal Street. He's a Sharpsburg Neighborhood Organization member, an avid gardener, and a passionate volunteer at the Sharpsburg Community Garden. And may I add my personal opinion, he's a very cool guy. So please welcome Kayla Portis and Chaz Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to sit. Okay. I guess we're up, Chaz.
Yeah, how many people remember Bumpy? Great guy.
Played football with Bumpy.
You played football.
I was a senior, and he was a freshman. I can't remember, he didn't go to college or something. He'd have been a sensational player. He was an outstanding football player.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
I remember shaking his hands, and he would just swallow my hands. That's how big his hands were. Wow. They were like 5 thumbs for fingers. Crazy. So you want to start?
So, growing up in Sharpsburg, Chaz, what do you remember?
I remember the steps like Mr. Gallo was talking about. Decide what we were going to do, where we're going to go for the night, and that's what I remember the steps mostly. Just hanging out.
So, what impact did sports have on you as a youth here in Sharpsburg?
Oh wow, a lot. I got to meet a lot of people. I went out of town. Bumpy took us out of town to play these guys on the north side, Larmer Avenue, the Hill District. We played everywhere. It just made us tough. Yeah.
Who here remembers that? Did you witness it? Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, tell us about the first time that you met Bumpy.
Oh, I knew Bumpy all my life. You know, I mean, I can't remember the first time. He knew me before I knew him.
Probably when you were born, right?
Probably, yeah.
So how did he inspire you?
His compassion about Sharpsburg. He loved Sharpsburg. He did everything for the guys. And he had girls, too. He had a girls' team. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, he was great. He used most of his money buying refreshments and getting the kids to the gym. And one thing I remember the most, he made us wear a suit and tie to go to different games, and because we're from Sharpsburg. That's how people looked at us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if Bumpy were here today, what would you say to him? That might be a scary question. Stay tuned. ...
What would I say to Bumpy?
Yes.
How you doing? No, I don't know.
Like how he impacted your life. If
Oh,
he
thank
were
him.
here today, what?
Oh, I would thank him for that. Thank him for taking me out of town and getting exposure to different types of people. What he did for Sharpsburg. Everything from his heart. He did it.
Can you describe some of the things that Bumpy did for Sharpsburg?
Oh, like the boys and girls basketball teams. Getting the gymnasium for us, which come out of his own pocket. He made us cut grass. Yeah, you impact me a lot about life. grow up to be a man.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you were to honor Bumpy today, what do you think would be a fitting honor for him?
He needs a mural. A big mural.
Any other ideas? I'm fishing here. I think the mural sounds like a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
And I think a plaque?
Put the Lyceum there.
Okay, all right. What about
Don't
both?
make it brass, because it won't last long.
Oh, no, not at all. Well, yeah, we'll have to talk about what kind of material we'll have to get for that.
Yeah.
Something you can't
Needs a
cut.
fundraiser or something.
Yes, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
The only thing we could do is move forward. Sharpsburg has, a lot of beautiful history here, and we plan on making a lot more history here in
Yeah.
Sharpsburg. My kids, they're fifth generation, and we were the first black family to be here in Sharpsburg. So yeah, a lot of history. Well, thank you all for your time, and that's it for us.
Thank you so much. So Pittsburgh-born Koryo Chai is many things. He's an artist and curator, podcast producer, community advocate, and potential Sharpsburg City Council member, and our filmer, and so many other things tonight. He has done so much to help me make this evening happen. He'll be up here with Emma Riva, an art writer, author, and curator based in Pittsburgh. She's the managing editor of Up, an international online and print magazine covering street art, graffiti, fine arts, and their intersections in popular culture. Emma's also a staff writer at Belt and a contributor to Bunker Review, Wide Walls, and Rust Belt Girl. When she's not interviewing graffiti writers in abandoned buildings in Indiana or gallery hopping without a car in Pittsburgh, Emma writes long-form fiction and published Night Shift in Tamaqua, an illustrated novel in 2021. Together, Emma and Corey will give us a picture of what Sharpsburg means to them and why they're happy to find themselves here. Please give a hearty welcome for Koryo Chai and Emma Riva.
Do you want the red mic or the black mic? You want the red one? Cool.
Well, that's good. This has been a great night so far. It's kind of, I appreciate it. Man, this feels like you ever have one of those moments where you go through a photo book,
Yeah.
and you gotta go through those, you could be having a bad time and you open up that photo book and you go through there and you start talking about this moment, that moment, you capture that. That's what this feels like. This feels magical.
It gets real specific, those memories. You look at the photos and you're like, oh, that's when that happened. And it makes you go back to the moment.
Absolutely. When we start having the idea for this building, how many of y'all remember Murray's? Oh yeah. When we start building this building, I fought for that chandelier right there. I fought for it. Yeah. We had an interior decorator. Oh yeah, she almost got the hands. No, I'm just messing with you. We had an interior decorator who wanted to put they wanted to modernize this. This is the original floor, 90 years. What was it? 1901, I believe, was when Murray's was built. This is the original floor. We made sure we kept that. And I wanted to keep this for this reason right here today, us sitting in here. This building was built to be a resource for the community can use to have moments just like this. So this is a dream come true right now, like right here. Everybody in here, take this in. This is important, and this is what we want to continue in here. So it's just, it's beautiful to see this. So we're gonna get to it now.
Yeah, let's get into it.
You ready? All right, I just had to say that to get that off the chest. All right, so Emma, if it wasn't for Sharpsburg, if it wasn't for everything that was going on here, we would have never met. So,
Yeah.
I guess I'll start off with where I came from.
For sure.
So I was born in Braddock, but I say I'm from Sharpsburg. Let's put that out there. But I was born in Braddock in the 80s. It was a tough time, tough environment. There was a lot going on. It's a beautiful town, but there wasn't as beautiful as probably what people remember it from when it used to be at that time. It was hard growing up. It was it's heavy. As I grew up, I got into trouble. While in Rome, you do as the Romans do. I didn't have anybody to influence me to do better. I didn't see better, so I didn't know what better looked like at that time. Once I barely graduated high school. Don't act like I'm the only one that barely graduated high school. I can look in here and point out a few people, but I'm not going to do that. Barely graduated high school at 18, but I graduated. I moved. I got that. And when I was 19, I was diagnosed with spindle cell sarcoma, stage 4, which really was the most beautifulest thing that ever happened to me, really, when I think about it, perspective-wise. Because the people I was growing up with and the way I was living, I probably wouldn't have made it to 25. So it saved my life. And that's how sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you has the best impact on your life because it makes you move different. So that happened. And as I went through that, like I said, it was the most beautifulest thing that ever happened to me because when I was going through chemo, they used to have these Duquesne University students come in there and they would, try to get experience, so they would access the ports and stuff like that. They would bring them in. And it was my time to actually talk to somebody my age, so I just let them access my port. So one day these two ladies came in. One's from Africa, literally from Africa. One was African descent, and they came in and accessed my port. And I start talking to this nurse, and next thing you know, like 2-3 years later, we were married. You know what I'm saying? yeah, that was the thing. So if it wasn't for, going through that, I would never met my wife, and it was absolutely the most beautifulest thing. So as that happened, we were living in Lawrenceville as I got through that, and we had to leave Lawrenceville because we know what happened over in Lawrenceville. It started to become gentrified. So I've been there for about 13 years. That's kind of when it started. Rent started really going skyrocketed, and we wanted to start a family. So we were looking around for a place that was nice, and we came here. And the reason we came here, which was a big reason, was it was great school district. Very low crime rate compared to what we were seeing, and I would still say low crime rate. And when I walked up and down the street, people were saying hello. You know what I mean? It was different. I never experienced that. Emma, never experienced
Yeah,
that.
it's very different.
Yeah, it was. So as that happened, we moved here, and this is where we started a family, and I'm so proud of that. And it's this place, because at that time, don't get me wrong, I was going through that. I wasn't still the greatest person. I was still developing into the man I am today. And if it wasn't for the environment here, the elements here, the people here, showing me love, I never got love outside of like the 4 walls that I used to live in. I never thought love existed outside of that. So it was cool to come to a place where you felt like that love everywhere you went.
You feel it's all in the environment around you. It's like in the air almost.
Absolutely. You could feel it in the air. Was that Phil Collins?
Feel in the air tonight, Phil Collins,
that's
yeah.
what that was. So
That drum solo,
I'm
so
trying,
good.
I'm trying.
So good.
Y'all are bringing back memories. I was trying to go back before my time. I got caught up, trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about. That's a great song, though.
I saw some like meme one time that was like, imagine you don't know that drum solo's coming and you get to experience it for the first time. Like,
oh, it's amazing. But
and that's what it was like when I moved to
happens
Pittsburgh.
every time. Yeah, and you came from. I mean, you're not from Sharpsburg either, right?
No.
Not originally.
Yeah.
I mean, let's hear a little bit about your story.
Yeah,
How
so
you made it to this beautiful town.
So I am not from Sharpsburg or Pittsburgh. As Corey said, I'm from New York. So I grew up in Washington Heights, New York, which is the northern tip of Manhattan, gets kind of cut off of most maps of Manhattan. Most tourist maps end around Harlem, and Washington Heights is above Harlem. And so I grew up in this very dense, like predominantly immigrant community in New York, and I went to art school. I studied writing. I always wanted to be a writer. I was always telling stories. That was what I wanted to do with my life, and I knew that my brain was just wired in this way where I was not going to be able to do what everyone else was doing. So I accepted that pretty early on, and I went to school, and then the pandemic happened. So that was a fun little wrinkle in my college experience at the very end of my college years. And I had already, as Corey was talking about his own childhood, I had a happy childhood. Parents loved me, very loving family, but there was also a lot of hard stuff that happened, a lot of mental health issues, and I had to look out for myself a lot in my teenage years. And so I had developed this like hyper independence a lot in life.
Absolutely. I remember when I first met you, it's just like I mean, you're a go-getter.
Uh-huh.
You're one of those people I know that just goes straight to it. It was, when I met you, it was hard to understand that you were still so young and still had it all together.
Yeah.
But when you came here, like it was, you never stopped coming here after you came here. Like
True.
You came here like once and then boom. It's
Yeah.
like every other week, every other day, 3 times a week I see you here. And you integrated yourself into this beautiful town, and people really resonated with you.
Yeah. And I ended up in Pittsburgh. I came to Pittsburgh for love. I was with a guy who was studying at Pitt, and we moved here together. And then I fell in love again, but this time with the city of Pittsburgh. And so,
The right love.
yeah,
The right
yeah,
love.
love that stuck around a little longer. So.
It'll be here forever.
Yeah, it'll be there forever. So after that relationship ended, I stuck around in the city. And actually, a little story about my experiences in Sharpsburg. So I wrote an article for the magazine Belt about Sharpsburg and the art scene here. I'm an art writer. I write about visual artists and their journeys and the amazing things that they do, and get to spend time with them and document their work. And I wrote this story about Sharpsburg, and I had gotten really close with a lot of people in the community, with Corey, with Nancy, with all the folks over at Red Hawk. And after I ended my relationship, we had lived together. I had nowhere to go. I had effectively was homeless. I mean, I could have stayed with my ex. I didn't want to do that. And I had to figure out, okay, where am I going to stay while I'm moving? And Nancy Goldberg let me live at her house for a week. So I am indebted to Nancy forever for that, for the fact that she let me hang out in her very, very nice house in O'Hara and play with her cat and work from her office space. And that's one of the examples of how this community is so giving and how people are so welcoming, and they treat you like your family.
Well, absolutely, and that's why I love it here.
Yeah.
That's why I love it here, and that's why I'm going to live here for the rest of my life. I know that for a fact. I know that for a fact. There's no other place that I want to live, and it's for things. It was for reasons like that. Me being here for 13 years, thinking this just happened now, and listening to your stories, I realized where it came from. That's the DNA. That's the thing. That was also the reason why we ended up leaving Lawrenceville, because that stopped existing because of the type of growth that was happening there. So to come here and to feel what you experienced, and like I seen that so many times, and I'm thinking it only happens here, and maybe it's just starting to happen, but it seems like it's been happening since the beginning, and that's been passed down. So I want to say thank you to all of you, because I mean, and your parents and the people that raised you, and all those morals that you have. So that's beautiful, and I experienced that as well coming here. I experienced that as well when I came here. Like I said, I wasn't the greatest seed, but there was people here. I mean, I would even go. There was people here that always told me I had potential, and I didn't believe. That was different. And they kept saying, it's like, man, you're so, like you're so smart, you're so caring, all those other things. Like you should think about, this or that, or like try to go for something. Like just get out of, I mean, there's a lot of bars here. Like just get out of the bars, like go and try something else. And I mean, people at the bars were telling me that. They just said they seen something in me, and I didn't believe it. And sometimes you need that. You need somebody to see something more in you than you see in yourself. Like
That's how I feel about you, Corey. That's how I feel about you, see me.
But I do, because
Yeah.
you're phenomenal. You're going to be somebody they write about in the future, and the kids are going to learn about.
Oh.
I know it for a fact. And there's so many people like that here. Like, I know that. Like, I know that. I feel it. Because I'm inspired by you. Like, I know that. And that's what I'm saying. I was led by people here, and sometimes people that are being, the people that are leading, the people that are led, embody the same characteristics of the people that lead them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I gathered that from it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what got me out of my rut. And that's what made me so far the person I've become. You know, I did a post earlier this week, and I talked about a seed in a pot. You put a seed in a pot, you put it in Antarctica, it'll never grow. But you take that same seed, you put it in California, where it's sunny and sometimes it's raining. It won't just grow, it'll flourish because it has the right elements.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what Sharpsburg is for me. So that's absolutely, like, this place, I owe this place everything, and I'm gonna give it everything. You know, I'm running for council. I'm so proud about that. I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah.
I'm running for council. I'm running for council, and my biggest thing is to hold on and preserve the core values.
Yeah.
The things that we love the most. The things that we experience, and so the next generation can experience it, and we can be sitting in those seats watching the next generation come up, talking like this. You know what I mean? That's what this is about, y'all. I'm getting emotional.
Yeah, I was like, am I gonna cry up there? I don't know. We'll see.
I didn't wake up today.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what?
Good cry is always good.
My lip is quivering.
Yeah. Yeah.
down.
Well, we're like emotional people. It's all good. And
Yeah,
it's
we
good
are.
to let it out. Yeah. There's one thing I did want to share as a little, like, very recent anecdote to my stories about Sharpsburg is, so today I was talking to somebody who was interested in being in an art show that I'm curating over on the south side. And this guy from New York who was like, oh, I'll come into Pittsburgh and I'll bring the piece and everything. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, where should I go? Like, maybe we can hang out. I can, see the city a little bit. And I told him, I was like, I'll take you to Sharpsburg. And I sold this guy on Sharpsburg so hard. Yeah. And this is a New York painter, like, it's a little bit of like a ritzy person, maybe. I don't know this dude that well, but like it.
Coffee with his pinky out a little bit.
Maybe we'll see. But I was just thinking about the places that mean the most to me here in Pittsburgh, and Sharpsburg immediately comes to mind because in this place, if you want to do something, you can just go out and do it, and people are receptive, and that's the thing I find so refreshing about Pittsburgh as a whole is that, like, New York is a city where things get consumed. People consume products. They buy stuff, they eat them, blah, blah, blah. And Pittsburgh is a city where things are made. You get to be around them and they're made. And you are the one creating it. And it's beautiful to see and it's beautiful to be a part of.
Absolutely. When we build out a TT, when we start building this out, the main thing was to make sure, like, I ended up talking to Matt Rudsky, I ended up talking to a lot of people that were just here their whole lives and trying to find out what the core values were. And some of the main ones we discovered was inclusive. Like, that was one. So when we made sure we did anything here, just the fabric of this place was to make sure that the core values replicated the town it was in, so it added value to the town it's in. And that's what, I see it happening, like, I can see it, so I can't even say it didn't work. But that, being inclusive, just having integrity, moving with class, like you, when you said Bumpy made you wear suits, because that's what you do in Sharpsburg. That's what you do. It's like, you hold yourself up to this level of you just move in integrity. You walk with your chest out a little bit.
You show up.
You show up. You show up. You show up and you show out. That's what we do in Sharpsburg. So it's just beautiful to keep hearing that. I lost myself. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just talking now.
Yeah, now Corey and I could talk for hours.
This can keep going on. So if there was one thing that you wanted to say while we were sitting here, what would that thing be about Sharpsburg?
So with your metaphor about the plant, the metaphor that I thought of is, so there's this concept in Japanese pottery where there's like a pot that has cracks in it. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. The pot has cracks in it, and in order to make it look different, they don't go over the cracks and they don't make it all look the same. Instead, they put a little bit of gold in it. You call it kintsugi. Kin means gold. And you take this crack, and rather than paving over it and making it look perfect and making it look like nothing happened, you take the crack, and that's where you put the sparkle in it. And to me, I came to Pittsburgh with some cracks, and now there's sparkle in them.
If I'm gonna end it with anything, I was gonna say, there's a saying that I love that says, "Life is the only teacher that gives you the test before you get the lesson." You heard
For
me say
sure,
this before.
yeah.
And life has given me quite a few tests of showing me what life is not about. But coming here, I understand what the lesson was. Now I can see what good looks like.
And see what life is about.
How? That's dope. Let's go. Hello. All right. Thank y'all so much, y'all. I'm running for council. The 2-year term. I had to finish it off. So when you go and vote this Tuesday, I'm a write-in candidate. There will be somebody there at the polls handing out material. That's Corey Ochai, Corey Ochai. No one has the phone out. We're recording this. No, I'm just playing. But if you feel that I'm the right person for the job, please just put my name down. And I don't think I'm gonna let you down. I just can't. So, all right. Thank you.
We dropped one speaker tonight, but I had asked Marcia if she would come up and just say a little bit of one of her stories to end our evening. Before Marcia comes up, I want to thank all of you again for coming, for sharing this evening with us, and just showing me really what Sharpsburg is all about and what it will, continue to be. So thank you all very much. And Marcia.
Hi, everyone. As Joanne said, I was last minute, so.
I can't thank you enough.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I like sharing my book. Since I don't have a speech ready, I'm just going to read from my book. I'm going to read from, and I'll try to be short. The chapter is called The Name Game. It's mainly about nicknames, and I'm sure, Bobby, you will know a lot of these people. My friend Judy and her sister Donna had an Uncle Ray. Every Saturday morning, they woke up to their dad and Uncle Ray talking loudly at the kitchen table. All they could hear from their bedroom upstairs was, "You know who I mean." Oh, fist pounding on the table. "What was his name?" "Oh, Chuck, come on, you know him, remember? He had a sister." "Oh, you know. He lived up there, up by Zuccaro's." "What the heck? What was his name?" "Geez, come on, you know who I mean. You went to school with him. He lived up there by Zuccaro's." "What was his name?" Well, I guess that's what happens when you get older, we thought. When I'm with my friends now and we can't recall a name from the past, we say to one another, "We're this close to that Zuccaro conversation." Names are more than what people call you. Names, especially nicknames, conjure up and evoke a myriad of memories. To me, it seemed like the residents of Sharpsburg were hell-bent on giving everyone a nickname. I like to think these names were meant to be endearing rather than cruel, but who knows? Some nicknames were obvious, like my dad being called Pug, short for Pugliese. Actually, there were quite a few Pugs, as Pugliese was a common name in our town. One of my dad's best friends was Nanny Panza. Come to think of it, there were several. There were a couple of variations of this nickname, including Big Nanny, Little Nanny. I had an Uncle Blackie, an Uncle Chew, and even the mayor of Sharpsburg, Marion Girardi, a.k.a. Mutt, could not escape this sweeping name modification. I recently came across a yellowed article that my father saved from a 1984 edition of Sharpsburg's long-running newspaper, The Herald. And here is an excerpt. "They waited for what seemed like an eternity unofficial jurors in the regular Thursday morning hearings for criminal cases in the office of Sharpsburg District Magistrate Raymond Casper. Suddenly the door opened and a dapper fellow floated in under a checkered cap, rubbing his cold hands and greeting his fellow retirees. Piney had arrived. "Come here, give us something to do," said Scratch. "Give us a chance. Coming here gives us something to do. It gives us a chance to check on who's still alive. Besides, sometimes there's an interesting case." Scratch's proper name is James Malley, and he lives in O'Hara Township. "Oh, the nicknames, everyone in this town has one," said 71-year-old Piney, whose proper name is Frank Urso. He lives in Sharpsburg. There was still time before the hearings began, so Scratch began scribbling a list. "Let's see," he began. "There's Toots, Albert Urso, Pinocchio, Philip Blank, and Straits, Joseph Urso, and Yaya, Joe Vita, and Peppy, Joseph DeLuca. Piney, Pug, Frank Pugliese, and Rabbit, Orlando Valenzo, both of Sharpsburg, were eager to help. Don't forget Sheiky, Francis Marcico, or Cousin, or Gooch, or Bare Hands," said Piney. "What about Satchel, or Rats and Snabs?" chimed in Pug. "Oh, we haven't even scratched the surface," said Rabbit. These are only a few from 6th Street up. We didn't even start on anybody from 6th Street down." So that was an article from 1984. Now for some name dropping. A pretty famous nickname person who emerged from Sharpsburg was Clemmy Babe LaCava. He was the Golden Globe boxing champ of 1949. He was named the best amateur in the country in featherweight division, winning all 9 of his fights. When he KO'd Nicky Zeza from Puerto Rico at Madison Square Garden in 1949, the referees denied him the win as the United States was in the midst of improving relations with the country. I guess they were too afraid to give the win to an American boxer over a Puerto Rican. A riot broke out in protest, and to this day, everyone in Sharpsburg who heard that fight on the radio will tell you that Babe was the champ, hands down. After his short-lived career in boxing, Clemmy moved out to California and worked as a bodyguard for Burt Reynolds for 20 years. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole chapter. Another reason for nicknames is that so often kids don't like their own name. I often wondered why my mother didn't grace me with the name Shirley, after my idol Shirley Temple, or Patty after Patty Duke, or my absolute favorite, Gidget. Alas, it is a tradition for Italians to name their children after somebody very old or deceased and not after a glamorous movie star. So I became Marcia Amelia, my middle name after my paternal grandmother. My older sister was Sheila Rose, after our maternal grandmother Rose, and our lucky younger sister received the most contemporary name, Joyce Lynn, after no one in particular. This made it easy to convince her, as a child, that she was a purchased pagan baby. Let me explain. When we attended grade school at Madonna of Jerusalem, each class was encouraged to bring in their leftover allowances of pennies, nickels, dimes, and plunk them into a jar for overseas missions. After accumulating $5, which usually took months, if not the entire school year, it was adoption time. We could officially adopt a pagan baby, a poor, deprived child who lived in a hut with 10 or 12 other family members and slept on a straw bed and had no shoes. Our $5 allowed us to spiritually adopt a child and name him or her. Naming the baby was a very big deal to our class. Of course, the name had to be approved by Sister Mary Martha, our principal. She would write our suggested names on the blackboard. No matter what we suggested, the name chosen was always Mary something, or Joan, or Cecilia Agatha, or another martyred saint. After all, this was a child of God. If the baby was a boy, he was always named Joseph Christopher before he was ousted. John or Peter. Even though we never got to name the name we wanted, thinking about names for our pagan baby was one of the highlights of our school year. Another ritual involving choosing a name occurred in the 6th or 7th grade when we were confirmed. As we became crusaders in Christ's army, we had a chance to add a name to our choice. To our given name. But alas, it had to be a saint's name endorsed by none other than Sister Mary Martha. So I became Marcia Amelia Teresa, after St. Teresa, the little flower. My mother desperately tried to convince me to take my Aunt Lena's name because she was my sponsor for confirmation. Well, thank goodness I won because Aunt Lena's real name was Eugenia. And at last, my 15 minutes of fame came finally in the late 60s. I remember so clearly that late summer day when I heard on the transistor radio that quirky little song that glamorized my name along with a few others. Marcia, Marcia, Bo, Barsha, Banana, Banana, Bo, Barsha, Fee, Fi, Fo, Marcia.
Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to all the presenters. Didn't they do a fabulous job? And what a great community. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you for coming.